Hello, this is Pixie doing a video. How are you? Hope you are great. Masks. Everyone wearing these masks. I think the issue is we need to have equilibrium with viruses. I mean, viruses' intentions are to exist. It's just that they have their own defence mechanisms and they can be fairly harmful, killing people, etc. But there's a lot of viruses that exist in us that don't do any harm at all. They're just there. And maybe in certain circumstances they might air their head again. They might even keep other viruses at bay. Like I think there was something to do with cowpox and chickenpox. If you get one, you can get the other, or something like that. Yeah. So because it's because they're related, and you develop an immune system response to it. Or it could even be the impact of that virus against another virus. It's less likely because of the way they reproduce, but I don't know how they act in the body as well. They might cause certain responses that might be nullified by the presence of the other virus there. Who knows? Or they could even mutate together. But the thing is, you need to have some kind of you need viruses in your life basically, because your immune system it needs a baddie to deal with, because if it ramps down, you become very sensitive to other things in the environment, like toxic agents and other chemical things that might be around, not just viruses. So without exposure, if you shield yourself off, this is why I think I remember somebody saying, her name's something Church, it's gone out of my head. She was a singer, but basically she said if you want to get immune to things, you might as well lick every surface in your kitchen. And even jokingly she said that, but actually she's right, because at least you're exposing a child or exposing a person to the environment, and that's where they're going to gain some extra immunity from it, or their own parents. So the problem is that there'll be lots of people wearing these masks. It will shield other viruses as well and protect in different ways. It may, in some circumstances, make it worse. It depends. I mean, if you use somebody else's mask, for instance, then you're having a direct exposure to something. It's a bit like I said about having this chest. I thought I had corona, so I was having a chat with someone, and I said, the only thing I had a client who had chest infection, and they sort of coughed over me, and then sort of so many few days later I sort of developed these symptoms, and she said, well, I don't think you can actually catch an infection. I said, well, I don't think either, but it's not impossible. I think it's to do with proximity. That's simply because someone's coughing through the air, and it's a bacteria. To get right down to your lungs and to survive the journey, it's more difficult for that pathogen. But however, if you've had a personal relationship with a person, then there would be direct transfer through body fluids. But even still, it's quite hard to get that into your lung. So I'll research that even if that's a possibility. If not, I could probably confirm that I've had corona and that it injured my lungs to some extent. I wouldn't mind having a scan just to check what's going on under the hood. But you just don't worry too much. But the other thing as well is I'm not afraid of the virus, and I think I'm probably immune to it. So I'm not going to have any concerns mentally with that. The other issue is now they're trying to push things like flu vaccines and other things. See, they complained about people they said too afraid to go to ER and stuff like that. It may be actually because people are indoors and the consumption of alcohol is down, and there's less interactions to cause crimes that would possibly result in physical injury and other things where they might go to ER. So they're actually become more cautious and safer. That's what you've encouraged the general public to try to be. And then you're complaining because they're not using the services that are available. I mean, it's other stuff like cancer. They're sort of saying, because people don't have the treatments, therefore the survival rate has dropped, but also the people who get cancer, the treatments kill them as well. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. How can you tell what worked out best and so on? And the other thing, I stand up for Boris Johnson and maybe other people, where they've turned around and said you could have locked down earlier, and I don't think that's true. virus activity recently. I had to stop and search yesterday, like I wasn't doing a video. I just lights come on. What are you doing, sir? Well, I'm videoing myself. Have you been drinking? Nope. I don't think it's illegal actually to video yourself, just as long as it doesn't impinge on your driving. There's nothing for it. It's a bit like a passenger. They might say they shouldn't talk to you, or you shouldn't have your radio on because it can distract you from thinking or something. I don't know. So there's also this pressure, going back to the virus, of other things like flu. They want people to take more flu jabs. They're all pushing this along, and they're saying of things like little kids and stuff. They don't need flu jabs. You get flu, you get sick, you get better. It's pretty straightforward. What happens? The virus comes into your body. It comes under attack. It tries to survive. It fights back. Eventually, it's either eradicated, or maybe it becomes a more milder strain and finds a way to survive in your body and is in you, stays in you for it until it gets moved into the next host or something. It's probably viruses that linger a bit. But they don't want to. Basically, your body's part of a protest. We don't want you here. The body's been racist to viruses, and so that's we've got to live in an environment with pathogens. We in ourselves are a pathogen to other things in nature. If we thought we did all good all day long, we'd be sadly mistaken, because the amount of food we eat, the amount of energy we use up, the amount of environmental modification we do, all this concrete. I mean, sure, I need it to drive my car down the road, but there's people when they just patioing the whole gardens up with stuff, which I don't really understand. I mean, I understand they want to put somewhere to put their car, but they kind of don't want to explore the benefits of nature. If I had a big garden, maybe I'd like to try to grow things. They can be a bit laborious. But maybe it depends what you grow in there. That's quite. Yeah, I mean, basically you want controlled space in your garden, and possibly you want areas where that's not. You want a bit of, you want to put things in there, maybe things that try to manage themselves to some degree. Like if you had a tree and bits of dead wood and a little area for beetles, or separate it out. And maybe you have a little flower garden, and then you have a little beehive there. Depends how big your garden is. People go, you can't have bloody wasps, you can't have bees, as to say, there, and all these sorts of things. But they can be fairly harmless. They just go off and propagate things. In your garden is not necessarily a bad thing, because if you've got a burglar that broke in, or some nutter in your garden, and he come over their fence and he kicked a beehive, Jesus, you'd have a nice surprise there. I don't know what they'd be like at night, how effective, but a swarm of bees on him. Well, what happens is that one attacks you, and then it lets out these this like pheromones, insect pheromone, and all the others follow the scent of it and they come at you. So they don't need to see at night. So it's like a tracker stuck on you, and they all attack you. It's possible that you could make a synthetic pheromone and shoot somebody with that, and then he'd get absolutely hammered by bees. They'd just come after him. So you'd attract them over, and they would have a kind of an aggressive response to him. God. No. There we go. I mean, but I must admit, growing up with viruses, I had some few nasty ones that took a while to get over. Stomach bugs, I had whooping cough last month, took a while to get out of my system. I have things like gastric flu and stuff. As an adult, I don't have any problems. I'm not rarely ever sick, so my immune system's where it needs to be, and I don't actually want to do anything that compromises it. So I don't want any vaccines, I don't want anything. I mean, sometimes I do improve your system, Like they might reduce the response. Like mosquitoes, I just have a bigger response. And I took something. Took something for hepatitis or something like that. I noticed when I got bitten by a mosquito again, my response to it was less, and it had been after I'd taken a few shots for things. I can't remember if I took a load of injections to go away to South Africa, or some other reason. Something else happened. But it could also be my immune system just been improving. And becoming more intelligent. So at best I want an immune system that's unaffected. And I think in the future, if they can use blood plasma as immunity and stuff like that, if everyone has damaged immune systems and you have a sample of something that's highly effective, it's got a value to that resource because it's specialist, so it makes a difference. I should be signing off this video soon.